Assalamu alaikum warahmatullah. So it's that time of week again, our usual Friday night live, and we're streaming off multiple platforms. We're streaming off YouTube and we're streaming off TikTok. So let's see what we can chat about tonight. And the topic of tonight's chat, we're talking dirt, right? Okay, something happened there. Something distracted me. Sorry. Something in the chat said I was successfully disconnected and reconnected. So I don't know what happened there, but at least hopefully I'm back and everyone can hear me loud and clear. So yeah, what I want to talk about tonight is have a little bit of discussion about garden preparation. We're coming into winter, and we want to set ourselves up in good stead for next year. We really want to food prices are growing up. The cost of living is going up. Food bills are going up. Gas prices are going up. Electricity prices are going up. So what we want to do is try and maximize our growing space, maximize our harvest, try and reduce that burden on us as much as we can. I mean, even if you're on a small balcony or on a small garden, then look at the way that I set up my container garden in order to maximize growing, even in a limited space. So regardless of where you are, there's always something, even a little something that you can get growing. Now, I don't know what's happening with this chat because the chat seems to have disappeared. There's no comments coming through so far. So if you're in the chat, say hello. Phil, how are you doing, mate? Thank you very much for coming in. Glad to see you here. I'm really, really glad you're coming in. One of my patrons. Thanks very much for coming in. Horticultural scientist Hamza wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah. Horticultural scientist, very fancy, mashallah. Toss Stones, how are you doing? Thanks very much for coming in. Davey, how are you doing, mate? Long time no see. Hope everything's good with you. So let's see who we've got over on TikTok. We've got a few viewers over on TikTok. Say hello. Thanks very much for coming in. And guys, don't forget to be hitting that like button as you're coming in as well. So Jerome Matt from Mexico, if I've mangled your name, I do apologize. But correct me on how it's going to be hard for you to correct me in typing. But yeah, you know what I mean. Alan, Jane, thanks very much for coming in, guys. Hope you're all keeping well. Been busy installing a new solar system on the allotment. Fantastic, man. Absolutely awesome way to go. See, wanted to get a solar system on our house, and for the system that we need, it's just going to be too expensive, and then we're going to have to apply for planning permission because we've got a dormer and most of the roof's flat. So to get solar panels fitted on a flat roof, because it's going to go over the elevation of the existing house, we need to apply for planning permission. So Shakir Rahman over on TikTok, wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah. Thanks very much for coming in. Hope you're keeping well. Graham saying, how come you're on time tonight? I thought I'd make it a bit of a surprise for everyone. You know, get on here. If anyone, are there any mods in here? And Graham, we need to sort that out with you, man. There you go. Can you get rid of the spammers? Graham, I've given you the power now, mate. So who else have we got? So DSG Far. Oh, I love your content. Where am I from? I'm from Leeds. Yeah, you're from Walsall. I've got family in Walsall. I've got a lot of family in Walsall, so yeah. So we've got Main Garden Guy. How are you doing, mate? Thank you very much for coming in. I think I'm missing a few people coming in. So Andrea is here. Yeah, you got rid of the spammer. Saturday morning here. I hope everyone's well. It's still Friday night. We'll be catching up to you very soon, I think. Bro has you log burner, absolutely awesome, really good. The one thing that's really surprised me, that's one of the things that I was going to mention. So yeah, I mean, solar panels was the thing that I really wanted to do and get set up in our house, but it's just too expensive for the system that we want to do. So I've gone for a log burner because we just, the way we use central heating was is we'd turn it on for half an hour in the morning and then half an hour at night, and then the rest of the day the house was cold. So now um, we just, yeah, I took what I had, and we've got this log burner, and finally the house is warm. So when you're asking how's the log burner getting on, absolutely awesome. Do you know that we can finally have the house warm? I'm picking up bits of scrap wood. I'm finding places to get cheap wood. Um, so yeah, I'm really happy with it. Is it a multi-fuel burner? No, it's just purely wood. It's purely a wood burner. Guys, if you can hit that like for me as you're coming in, and also can you share the stream out if you don't mind. Bro, can you advise what to do in the gardening in winter? That's what this topic is about. So today's topic is about talking dirt, right? We're going to be talking a lot of dirt tonight. So what I want to talk, what I was saying was, if you look at the last series of videos, last couple of videos that I've done on YouTube, one was when's the best time to start the garden, and with most things like this, these are long-term investments. So the best time to start was yesterday, and the second best time to start is now. So start your garden now. As soon as you can get some, as soon as you can get out into the garden, get outside when it's not raining, when you've got a bit of fresh air, get out there. You'll get some exercise, but you can get yourself your garden set up and get yourself prepared for the growing season. So winter, the biggest things about winter is preparing your garden, is preparing your growing beds, preparing your season to come, as well as planting some of those long season vegetables as well. Who else have we got coming in? We've got Mars. How are you doing, mate? The same person as Paul. See, this is funny. This. So I was talking to this guy called Paul Morris on my YouTube chat, right? And a guy called Moz over on Facebook, and I wanted to introduce the two of them because they both happen to be tree surgeons. And I was like, hey, I know two tree surgeons. They've both got the same surname, and one's over here and one's over here, but they've got different first names. I'll introduce them. And it turns out they're the same person. Karano, how are you doing? Thanks very much for coming in. Planet Zog, how are you doing, mate? You watched your candle heater. See, the candle heater worked really well. Last year, the way we were getting the fat for free, gas prices were a lot less, so rendering the fat was a lot easier. So if you do it on an outside wood stove now, that'd be the way I'd go. The only problem, the biggest drawback around the candle heater was the amount of soot that it produced. So it created a lot of soot in the greenhouse. So the glass had, by the end of winter, it had a layer of soot on it that I had to clean. And some of the stains I've not been able to get off properly because I've not been able to give it that proper clean. But it worked well. It kept the greenhouse warm. There's a lot of seedlings that just needed that above freezing temperature to keep growing. We were managing to grow lettuce and things like that all winter long without much of a problem. So where else are we? Talha, wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah. Graham, how are you doing? Thanks very much for coming in. Blackjack, I'm a beginner at gardening and stuff. What crops would you recommend for a low to no sunlight? See, anything with a lot of no sunlight is going to be difficult, right? No sunlight is going to be very difficult to grow stuff in. There are still some plants that will grow. I mean, sorrel is one that will grow in low sunlight, but it's an acquired taste. It's quite acidic. It's quite lemony. But then if you've got at least 3 or 4 hours of sunlight, you can grow a lot of stuff, a lot of leafy vegetables, cabbages, not cauliflowers, cabbages, spinach, chard, all of these kind of things with a lot of leaves on them, predominantly leaves. They'll all do well in low sunlight areas. But no sunlight, everything will struggle. But low sunlight, they will, so you can get away with quite a lot. Let's see who else is over here. So Clear Horizon, wa alaikum assalam. Did I study in madrasa? Yes, I did. Because he looks like Molvi. Tony, how are you doing, mate? Thank you very much for coming in. Shakir, that's because I am, man. But yeah. So my new compost is 75. 75. Is that 75 liters? In the first 2 days, mate. 75 degrees Celsius. Okay, that's awesome. You've packed that up nicely, man. You've really packed that up nicely. You seem familiar. Which madrasa? I studied in Bradford, so JKN. Allotment chef, how are you? Oh no, it's not allotment, it's allotted chef. How are you doing? Thank you very much for coming in. Been busy recycling. Got a tumbling composter from one of my customers at work and got. Oh yes. Do you know, is your tumbling composter electric or petrol powered, or is it manual powered? Yeah. So I seem to recall you don't put compost on until springtime. Do I remember correctly? Phil, that's right. This is what was So back to the topic of tonight's thing, is preparing garden beds and how I go about preparing garden beds in winter. The thing is now is to try and get the soil into tip-top form, get it into some real nice shape for next year. You want to be able to maximize your harvest. So I do crop rotate. I know it's becoming less fashionable.
Oh, I forgot we were doing the live. I was scared that there was no one upstairs.
Okay, can you get my glasses for me, please?
Where are they?
I don't know, somewhere downstairs.
Hold on, I just have to get Vic's for that.
But
He's getting what? He's just coughing, so Dad asked me to get
so what I was saying was, yeah. So what I was saying was, I got distracted there. The kids came in now, but now I've got the next one coming in saying hello. But so yeah, now's the time to get the garden into tip-top shape, ready for next year to get your garden vegetables growing. And what I do crop rotate, even though it's going out of fashion, but I have a different system of crop rotating. So I like growing, if you don't already know, I like growing my potatoes in wood chips, and I like to grow, no dig potatoes in a thick layer, at least 1.5 foot, close to 2 foot of 1.5 foot of wood chips, and then once those wood chips are broken down, then I'll move my potato bed onto a new bed, and then repeat the process again. And by the time I've got around to the garden again, my wood chips are in the first bed are broken down and they're completely, integrated with the soil. And then I'll start again with the cycle over again. And I've got 5 main growing beds, and that's the way I cycle my garden. So I've got a 5-year cycle with the level of wood chips that I'm putting down. But this year, one of the things that I'm doing is I'm getting rid of all my garden paths, and you might have seen it in my last couple of videos, is I've got rid of a lot of my garden paths, and I'm just wood chipping everything, and that's for a number of reasons. One, the main reason is safety. The other one is it's just going to give us more growing space. It's going to allow a more natural garden that we can just flow from one area to the other area without any big issues.
How is it safe?
So it's not going to be a slippy. So Phil, yeah, applying compost in spring, because we get a lot of rain. For me, if I applied compost now and it gave us a heavy rain, tomorrow there'd be no compost left on that bed. And the way my garden has been consuming compost, I put compost on, and within a few months, that compost has completely disappeared. So and I'm back to really thick clay soil. So what I prefer to do is I like to put on a lot of heavy mulches, so wood chips, leaves, things that aren't broken down, really heavy mulches, the things are going to take at least a few years to break down. And that I find gives my soil a layer of protection and a layer of feed for a long term, and it's not affected by wind, it's not affected by rain, and it's not affected by the natural living activity in the soil sucking everything away. You've still got that surface protection. Yes, sweetheart.
And how does the compost appear?
Wind, I just explained it. Wind, rain, the soil absorbs it and integrates it into the rest of it. I mean, that's a good thing, but it'll get rid of the compost really quickly. And because ours is really heavy clay, it doesn't make a massive difference unless we're having tons and tons of compost in one go. How are you doing? Someone said mushrooms about growing in a dark space to zero light. That's always a good shout. I saw your dumpster diving video. Lots of wood for the fire. All Ivan, absolutely lots of really good wood there. There's been a few people commenting around. See, yeah. So there's been a few people commenting on those videos, both on TikTok and on YouTube, saying that that I'm collecting stained wood and treated wood, and I shouldn't be burning that. Yes, I know I shouldn't be burning treated wood, and I'm not collecting treated wood. The wood that I'm collecting is internal roofing timbers, and internal roofing timbers are not treated in the UK. So yeah, it's not treated in the UK, and because it's not treated in the UK, it's absolutely fine to burn. It's brown because it's dirty. It's covered in dirt. It's covered in dust. It's 100 years old. White wood, really light coloured wood, does get dark and does look stained over time. So for anyone who's listening to this, who wants to be a critic, that's looking at this wood through a camera lens, it was twilight hours that I filmed it, that they managed to recognize that something that I didn't, even though the wood was in my hand. Yeah, so that's my little rant over, by the way. So why can't you use any wood? So treated wood is carcinogenic. So if smoke does get into the house, it can be harmful for people. Releasing treated wood smoke into the atmosphere is not good for the atmosphere and not good for the environment. Using wet wood is bad for the environment as well. It releases a lot of smoke and it doesn't heat up as well. So you need good seasoned dry wood. So where have we got? Sit up. So potatoes in 1.5 foot of wood chips. If you haven't seen that video, I've done lots of videos on the wood chips that are doing the potatoes that are doing video, potatoes that are doing wood chip. Do go and check them out. There's a lot of stuff on there. What's your name again? Absolutely love your channel. My name is Mothin. Will potatoes grow well in coconut fiber? The thing about coconut fiber, it's very low in nutrition. They'll grow well because they've got a nice nutrient level. The hairy stuff on the coconut shell.
Of that.
So it's very low in nutrition, almost next to nothing. So because it's quite loose and quite friable, it's going to give it a perfect environment for the potatoes to expand. But you need to find a source of nutrition for them. So when I first started planting potatoes, the thing that I do is that my key is that the roots go into the soil. The wood chips are there just to give it a growing medium, and the nutrition comes from the soil. But as the wood chips are breaking down and feeding the soil, then that's making the soil even more nutrient rich, and then the plants are doing even better because of it. Hexagonal triangular frame that produces 200 liters. Awesome. So I have a chop and drop front garden, mix of flowers, edible plants, shrubs. I started growing mushrooms indoors and add the spent mushroom blocks to my garden, and boost it. Absolutely, I love chop and drop. See, I like chop and drop system. So what would you say is a better alternative than dry wood? The only other alternative that would be half decent would be, you know, sort of pellets or the pelleted block, you know, the blocks that you can get now, which is a lot of sawdust that's been compressed, and you can use that. But it's expensive. It really is expensive stuff. Something that would last me a week would from the compressed wood. Just 1 second. That last me a week from compressed wood would cost me about 30 quid. Whereas I can get 30 quid's worth of tree. If I got like a tree for 50 quid, it'll last me close to 6 months. So it makes absolutely no sense to use that sort of stuff when I can get a full tree for a lot cheaper. Yes.
What's chop and drop?
Chop and drop is when you chop the plants and just leave them on the soil. Do you know, like we do with the cover crops?
Yeah.
Yeah, so when we chop them down and just leave them to break down on the soil, that's chop and drop. So potted 6 dwarf pillar fruit trees separately. Need to make more soil for them, mixing compost with some sand and perlite. Sprinkle of blood and bone. If you're planting them in pots of and just chuck them in there, as long as you can protect it from catched up by animals and stuff like that, then yeah, I mean, if you saw the way I planted my dwarf fruit trees, I just literally put the bottom layer in as unbroken down kitchen scraps, and then I put in some compost, and then I planted the tree just on top of that and let that break down. And now this year what I'm going to do is, because that's all broken down, the soil level's sunk about 6 inches. So I'm going to pull the plants out of the pots, repeat the process, and just, you know, give them some more feed for the next, in effect, for the next couple of years. Joan, how are you doing? Thank you very much for coming in. Hope you're keeping well. Adam, how are you doing? I've repurposed dry logs to create store in my guinea pig bedding at the allotment. As far as I'm aware, the wood shavings aren't treated.
What's the mean when it says treated?
Treated means it's got some kind of paint or something on it. So how do you get rid of whitefly? Check out my video on YouTube on neem oil. It's absolutely brilliant. Neem oil's good stuff for it. Whitefly, washing it, fairy liquid, or some kind of soft soap. That's the way to do it. Have I tried bokashi? Jedi? Yeah, I did try bokashi about 10 years ago. Personally, I think it's a bit of a fad, and I know there's a lot of research done on it, especially in some of the Asian countries, around using bokashi in landfill sites. I think it's got a purpose there, but for the way I garden and the way I compost, it's close to useless for me, because what I'd prefer to do than bokashi is just miss the bokashi step out, is take my compost, spread it on the surface of, just take my composting materials, either put it straight into a pot, you know, and leave it there to compost over the winter, or spread it on the surface of my soil, cover it up with some other mulch, and let it break down on the surface of my soil, or stick it in my conventional compost pile. So there's better uses I find from it than going through the bokashi process. So it's just a step that I can miss out. So Noor Ali, wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah. Hope you're keeping well. Joining us from New York. So where do you buy the fruiting blocks? Okay. So they're having a little conversation. I'll leave them to it. I was thinking of putting some lagging in large plastic bags and wrapping them around my plastic compost bins to try and keep them warm a bit through the winter months. Every little bit helps.
What's
like plastic sheeting. Every little bit helps. If you want to do active composting through the winter, then that's fine. That will help. Old carpet, you know, some people use old carpet as well to wrap around the compost heaps. That makes a bit of a difference. For me personally, as long as I can keep enough water off my piles, I just leave them to do their thing. I'm still setting up some of my compost piles. And they're just normal pallet bin compost piles, so they're quite big. They're too close together, so they insulate each other in effect. but I just leave them as they are. And then I'll harvest the compost. And I like compost in a couple of ways. I like compost as finished compost, and I like compost as semi-broken down compost. Finished compost is for planting plants and potting up stuff and things like that, sowing seeds. Whereas semi-broken down compost, that's the stuff that I stick on my garden beds, because that just gives me a long time of that on the soil, and it breaks down a lot slower. There's your friend Kashmala. Okay. So, how can I have coriander all year round without a greenhouse? Grow it on your windowsill. Grow it on your windowsill inside your house. That's the best way. Coriander is a low light level plant, so it'll do well. As long as it can get a couple of hours of sunlight, it'll do all right. But windowsill is probably your best bet. Signal was going funny, mate. Check your phone. I'm on my computer, so I should have a decent. Has anyone else had signal issues? So Ali, how are you doing? Thank you very much for coming in. Michelle, how are you doing? Thank you very much for coming in. Hope you're keeping well. Hope everything's good with you. So Linda Bean, couch grass, can it go on top of the compost heap when it's completely dead, or will the couch grass is absolutely fine to go on the compost heap. If you're getting hot composting and you're getting good temperatures, couch grass can grow into the middle of the pile and break down in there. If you've taken your compost, if you've got your couch grass, one of the things you can do is just take the grass, the roots, everything, wash the soil off and leave them in a bucket of water. You leave it in a bucket of water and just let it rot in there. And then that'll turn into some nasty, smelly, stinky soup. And once it does that, that's absolutely rocket fuel for your plants. Most plants that have long tap roots or long stringy roots in the soil, they're really, really good to make fertilizer from. So couch grass is absolutely brilliant for that. Dandelion, dock, all of these kind of plants are really good for that. Let's see. If I can only choose one, which is better, worms or compost? I find worms dropping very good for plants. See, it's a hard one, that, because worms, I think worm compost is absolutely, amazing, but it's the way I use that is I use that as really a fertilizer. So I'll take a handful of worm droppings and I'll add it to a mix of compost, and I'll use that in my potting up plants. And then through the season, I'll take a handful of worm droppings or worm castings, and I'll just mulch around a plant with that. Or I'll just broadcast it with my hand. I'll take it, like you do with chicken manure. So I use it in a very different way to a lot of other people might use it. Whereas with compost, that's the bulk of the stuff that I'm growing in. So if I'm growing potted plants, that's where my compost comes in, with a little bit of worm castings added into it. Or if I'm using that semi-broken down stuff, that's the stuff that I'm spreading on my beds. And then through the season, I'm sprinkling worm castings over the top of it. So, it's difficult. It's a difficult one. But if I had to choose one or the other, I'd go for a compost pile, conventional compost pile over that, because you can produce a lot more, and you can go. You're not going to get the same quality as worm castings, because the gut of a composting worm is just full of bacteria. It just supercharges your soil. But if you go for a hot composting method, you're not going to get loads of worms in there. But if you go for a slow composting method, then you're going to get lots of worms in your compost pile anyway. I thought with Lukash you could compost stuff like pasta, rice, dairy, and then feed it to your wormery. Vermin can get attracted to it, but what I do with that stuff is I bury that stuff anyway, so I can compost. if you look at the way I planted my fruit trees, I'll take that kind of stuff, you know, bread and rice and all that sort of stuff that's left over, and I'll stick it at the bottom of a plant pot, and then I'll put a plant on the top of it, and then that'll break down. You know, it's because it's buried. It's not smelling. It's not causing any major problems, and you're getting loads of you know, it's breaking down. It's feeding the plants, so it's not a big deal. Um, most of that stuff I add to my worm bin anyway. You know, you've got vermin. This is one of the things that we need to get comfortable with as gardeners, is rats and things already live in the garden. It's how are we going to manage to live with them? I think that's the thing that we've got to figure out. And I've got don't do that. And I've got a real bad phobia of rats, and I'm really terrified of rats.
He's also scared of hamsters.
Yeah,
that's why
rats, hamsters, mice, you know, all those kind of rodent things. They do freak me out.
Tiny furry animals.
Bodybuilding, motivation. Assalamu alaikum warahmatullah. Thanks very much for all your comments and everything that you know, you're always on my videos. I really appreciate it. Sam and Bex. Sam, so that's Sam's allotment. He's over on TikTok as Sam and Bex. Hope you're keeping well, mate. I hope the baby's good. So Ali, you're asking dig versus no dig. I'm a no digger, but I'm not a no dig Puritan, if that makes sense. Now, if I need to dig my bed, I'll dig my bed. I prefer not to dig because it reduces the impact on the environment, and it helps. And a lot of it is unnecessary. It'll, you know, the thing about digging your soil is when you dig your soil, you release carbon into the environment. You oxidize the. That's my phone case. You oxidize. Because my phone's over there. You oxidize the organic matter in the soil, so that's the reason that you shouldn't dig. Right? That's the big reason that you shouldn't dig. There's a lot of things about protecting soils. Even if you dug it and then, you know, put a lot of heavy mulch over the top, you'd protect your soils. So there's a lot of other things that are said around digging that I don't really agree with. Like also, you know, like sometimes soil can become compacted. I've got some really large trees that encroach into my beds. Their roots encroach into my beds at the bottom of my garden. So every few years, what I'll do is I'll dig a trench to cut off some of their, you know, the feeder roots from the trees. And the good thing about that is the roots will break down in, you know, in my garden beds, but I'll stop them robbing the nutrients out of my garden beds. Another thing is, a few years ago, I poisoned my garden with aminopyrrolide. Now, because I poisoned the garden with aminopyrrolide, and pyrrolids break down with digging, I dug the soil, you know, to help break that poison down. So these are things that that I haven't got a problem with doing. I'd prefer not to dig if I could avoid it, but yeah. Excited for my delivery no matter when it arrives. So Michelle, there's just been a real problem with Royal Mail at the moment, just because of the strikes. So last week they were off for 2 days. The week before that they were off for a couple of days, and they're just a huge backlog. I've got a few people saying that they still haven't had their orders. We went into thingy today, into the post office, and we said to them, you know, asked them to chase a few things up, and they said they've definitely got them. And they confirmed that they will get delivered. It's just going to take time because of the strikes. Sam and Bex gave daisies. I'm not sure what a daisy is, but appreciate it. Dave, how are you doing, mate? Thank you very much for coming in. We've got 4 or 5 people on TikTok. Guys, if you wouldn't mind hitting that like as you're coming in, that'd be good. What do these daisies do then? Yasin, assalamu alaikum, kiddo. Where we going? So excited. Interference was purely while she responded to me about my fruit tree. Oh, brilliant. It's 8:35. Yusuf, wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah. Thanks very much for coming in. So Ali, I think you've asked that question a second time. I know I'm a bit behind in the chat, but let's see. Let's catch up a little bit. Grow, live and share, Northeast England. How are you doing? Thank you very much for coming in. I think it's the first time I've seen you on the live, but you're very welcome. Oops, where have I gone? That's good news about the couch grass. I took it out of my 60 kg of, yeah. So couch grass, you know, the roots are the biggest problem. The grass itself will break down. It's the roots that every piece that you snap off can grow on and you know, and turn into a new plant. So you want to find a way of killing them. Drowning them is one of the really good ways because it turns into really good liquid feed. The gifts. Okay. See the TikTok live gifts and things. They're still. I think I've had one rose before, or maybe something. So I appreciate it, mate. Thank you very much. So your cat loves your garden. We get a lot of cats in the garden. Mark, sorry for missing last week. Do you feed your plants in winter? I've got good and bad things. I've got good and bad things. Too much nitrogen. So, firstly, no problem at all. I mean, I wasn't here last Friday either, so you've got nothing to apologise about, man. Do you feed your plants in winter? Not really. Because we haven't got the light and we haven't got the right growing conditions for plants in winter. For me, it's just about keeping things alive. So I'll give them as much water as they need, but I won't give them a proper set of water as though the plant was growing. My aim is just to somehow get them through winter. If I'm growing, they're the plants that I'm overwintering. But if you've got things like salads that you're growing and you're harvesting, or onions that you're trying to get established, or garlic that's in the soil, the way I grow my garlic is with a lot of compost. They don't need feeding until spring, late spring. But if you've got onions from seed and things like that you're trying to get established in a tray, then once they're a few inches tall, then I will give them a feed because I want them to get into, and I'll give them a high nitrogen feed to get them, pushing up that green leafy growth really fast. But really, I won't feed the rest of the plants. So Sam said, I can't wait to get back to the plot. Hopefully I'll be there tomorrow. Awesome, man. See, I want a good day. I just want a day where I can spend in the garden. At the moment, I'm not getting that time because most of my time, as soon as I'm getting a weekend free, is going shifting wood chips and chopping wood, just to keep the house warm. That's the thing that surprised me more than anything is the amount of wood that a wood stove consumes. I thought a couple of logs would last me for the whole day, but once you've got that wood stove going, a wheelbarrow load of logs will last a couple of days, and it's really, really surprising. Never noticed the squirrels are always. See, the squirrels are always about. I'm sure they were digging up my garlic a few years ago. Yeah, I'm sure it was them. I want to put some crops. I want to put crops over my grass beds. Just going to put cardboard and compost over. If you're going to do that, you're going to do that now, or you're going to do that later. See, what I'd prefer to do if I was starting a fresh grass bed is I'd build in a lasagna bed rather than compost and cardboard. I really don't like that method. So what I'd do is I'd stick loads of kitchen scraps, manure straight onto the grass, and build that up a little bit. Then stick on the cardboard, a bit of compost, and then some at this time of year, get loads and loads of leaves and cover your compost with loads and loads of leaves. By spring, that'll all break down. It'll be a nice high bed as well. It'll be a raised bed, and especially if you've got heavy clay, that'll be absolutely fantastic for you. Yes, I'm absolutely, man. Every time I'm out in the garden, it's I'm chopping wood, Michelle. And I didn't take it as a criticism. I'm just trying. I feel really bad because things aren't getting out to people, and some people are asking. Quite a few people contacted me actually saying where's my orders, but I just think I owe you that explanation. I've taken your money and I owe you that explanation. So a lot more strikes coming before. Yeah, there are. I think there's another 4 or 5 days planned. If you had to fill 40 centimeter high raised beds, you had composted horse manure, grass clippings, compost, tree roots, old compost. What order would you lay these down? Look, so grass clippings, compost, tree roots. So the tree roots would go the first. Yeah. And then I'd add horse manure into those tree roots to break, to fill in the gaps, and the grass clippings as well mixed into there. So I'd treat grass clippings and horse manure pretty much similar, but I'd save some horse manure for a little bit higher up as well. So tree roots, grass, horse manure, those three in and amongst each other, with a layer of horse manure and grass covering the tree roots. And then what have you got? Then it'd be all old compost. But before I'd put old compost on, is if you can get some old, some garden soil, some existing soil. There's so much mineral content and bacterial life in healthy garden soil. So take a couple of inches of that, chuck that in, and then I'd add the old compost on top of that. Di, how are you doing? Thank you very much for coming in. Have a good evening. I'm sorry to be late. Brassicas grown in tubs are absolutely amazing. Awesome. So Hamza, you're back, mashallah. So yes, I'm working hard, man, trying to do everything that I can to just look after the family, really. But we're trying to get these pickles off the ground. We've got another couple of markets, not this weekend, but hopefully we've got 2 markets next weekend on the 10th, Saturday and Sunday. So if anyone's around Harrogate on Sunday, you might see us up in Harrogate. I think Harrogate. I'm not exactly sure of the location, but we're going to be somewhere in Harrogate. So I found that an old-fashioned digging hoe just rolls up the couch grass with the roots intact. Which kind of digging hoe is that? A digging hoe? Do you mean the big one, or or the small one? I dug my allotment to make sure the roots came out with all the couch grass wasn't good on the back. Not been able to put a new potting shed up yet due to it. Man, I keep saying, man, you've got to take it easy. see, I don't want to lecture, but I'm like you. I'm very much like you. That as soon as I feel well, I just want to go hell for leather at everything. And then when I'm feeling bad or feeling ill, then I can't do anything. I need to learn that myself, is how to pace myself and how to pace myself for the garden. And just about life as well. But yeah. Right, so I knelt down today at work, and let's say it wasn't dirt. Oh man, where is he called? Grove Veg UK, how are you doing? Thanks very much for coming in. I heat my whole greenhouse with wood, my whole house with wood exclusively. This year I'm heating all our food. I'm heating all our food and general coffee, tea, hot water on our stores manually, collect wood, split it and stack it. Awesome, man. Absolutely awesome. See, if I didn't, you know, when I got the wood stove fitted, if I'd have known that it was that simple, I would never have got someone else to fit it for me. I would have fitted it myself. Yeah, I really would have. So hawthorn burns very hot. Thorns are a problem. See, hawthorn's one that I want to get. Toss. I've actually got a eucalyptus. So the first tree that I got delivered was eucalyptus. So some of the videos or little TikToks that I did was splitting eucalyptus logs. Now it's some of the best wood that I've ever seen. Actually, the patterns, the colors of the wood is absolutely beautiful. The smell is gorgeous. Yeah, it's just really nice wood, but it's got a really high water content. That's the only thing that I'm noticing so far. And once it's dry, I've got a couple of pieces that are dry, and they're solid like rock. Really dense wood. I really like that tree. So, Dandy Mom from Kansas, how are you doing? I was wondering if you had many thoughts of using gypsum to help break down heavy clay soil. I know people do it. I don't think it's necessary. I think there's lots of more organic ways of doing it. So I had a lot of, you know, I started on one of the things that I discussed in my last video was I started on sort of nasty yellow sticky clay, that stuff that you could almost take and make pots out of, that kind of stuff. And then once you got below that, it was really blue, nasty smelling clay. So what I did with that was I planted things like lots and lots of long radishes, so lots of muley type radishes. And every year I planted those not to harvest, but to compost. So all I'd do was chop them down and I'd leave the roots in the ground. And that's just creating loads of compost corridors, lots of direction for worms to travel. And once you've got worm activity, you're creating passages for water to go down, you're creating passages for organic matter to drop down. You're just creating life in the soil. And also the way I mulch heavily, that's just improved my soil. I think it was in my last video, you can see me just digging the soil with my hands. So yeah, it will take time, but I think there's better ways of doing it. I had some sad news this past week. My allotment neighbour passed away. He was a lovely bloke, and one of the old guard on the plots. Him and his wife helped me. Oh man. Oh, Dean, I'm sorry about that. Which side was he? Or was he a direct neighbour? Or so I've got to tell you, I'm 5 foot, weigh 9 stone, I'm visually impaired, and I've just moved a 4 by 5 foot raised bed or legs out onto my drive. That's hard work. That's good. Do you know, I don't care how tall or how heavy you are. I think that's going to be hard work for anyone. That, you know, but when you've done it with that, with your size as well, yeah, that's some work. That's an achievement. Yeah, I like that. I like that. um, it's a big one like that. That an old chap gave me, a bit like a pickaxe with a sharp blade. Yeah, so that's a sort of digging hole that I've got. So it's quite wide. I did a video about it ages ago. What's Circle Dad? They're they're not like the Dutch holes, but they're more so the digging holes are like I think they originate in sort of Africa, Asia, that kind of area. but they're very popular over in Asia. In Bangladesh, that's all they use. They don't. Very rarely do they use a spade. But I got a really nice one from where was it? Was it Tool Station? I think that was about 15 quid, something like that. But absolutely brilliant one. It's served me well all the time. I've learned to go more low energy in the garden, more perennials and nothing that needs much attention. Grow smarter, not harder. See, for us, there's just because of the way we grow, and just because of the things we grow and things that are going to suit our diet, it need a cultural change to shift to just perennials. So I do grow more annuals than I do perennials, but I'd like to grow more perennial. But at the moment, the sorts of things that I like to grow, the perennials just don't cover it. So I'm so bloody jealous of that wood. So did you go through the chimney, through the bedroom, then through?
Whoa.
Yeah. So the chimney runs. I keep meaning to do a video of it. So the chimney runs through my bedroom, and then through the attic, and then straight out the roof. So my room's warm. My room's always warm. And the attic's, it's not warm. I wouldn't say it's hot or anything like that. But it just takes the chill. Like if you'd walked into a freezing room, it'd be cold. If you walked into the attic room, it's not cold. So the way we've got the chimney set up and the way we've got the wood stove set up, we're getting a good amount of heat through the house. Eucalyptus needs to store water to survive, takes time to dry, and then burns slowly and hot. Yeah. I've got most of it. Most of it's chopped. Most of it chopped and stacked, and I'll leave it for a couple of years. Just the amount of water in it. Yeah, I think it'll just need it. Where else? Will you still collect horse manure in the future, or are you put off due to potential contamination? I still collect horse manure. I collected horse manure only a couple of weeks ago, and that's the stuff I've got spread on my beds. There is the risk, but I get hay for my chickens, and I spread that on my beds. I don't think it's a massive risk. When I poisoned my garden,
You poisoned your garden.
or when I poisoned that one bed, the mistake that I made was I got my grass clippings from my tree. The guy who used to live in my wood chips, and he does a lot of mowing grasses and maintaining gardens for commercial properties. Now they're spraying with all kinds of stuff. So the stuff that he was getting, I should have realized. I should have known that it was toxic before. It was like typically toxic. I get my horse manure from a donkey sanctuary, so I don't know if that makes a massive difference, but I think there's a little bit.
The poo. Oh, we just play with the donkeys.
Yeah, you guys play with the donkeys, and I'm playing with my poo. I don't think there's.
Sounds weird when you say that.
There is a risk. I don't think it's massive, but there is a risk. You're right. It's only been there for 3 months. It was full of wood chippings at the bottom and fresh, brand new compost at the top.
Oh, did he go somewhere?
Who? Well, this is a flying visit. Dean, I appreciate you coming in, man, and see you soon. Yeah.
Chickens are delicious.
I wasn't putting you down, just commenting on getting older and trying not to. I wasn't put down by it, man. I was just, it's a conversation. I don't get upset by a conversation. um, I'm getting older. So I normally chop back the summer blackberry shoots. Summer's blackberry shoots. Now, do you?
Alpaca, look.
See,
Alpaca
blackberries,
vineyard,
raspberries, most of those kind of plants, I'd give them a trim as soon as I get an opportunity during winter. I like to do a lot of that kind of pruning. I mean, with raspberries, I don't grow summer fruiting raspberries, so I don't need to half prune them. But most of these kind of plants, I like to prune them before they're starting to grow, way before they're starting to grow.
They have alpaca manure.
Chickens are delicious. All the TikTokers have gone, so we've got all the TikTokers disappeared. Okay, fine.
There's zero people.
Sit up. Alpaca manure. Alpaca manure fresh straight onto the beds. I'd say get that straight onto the beds.
What? Oh yeah, 50 baht p a bag.
Donkeys.
How big is the bag?
I'm 40. Graham, you're only a few years older than me, man. You're not.
Just 7 years older.
You're just gonna blurt it out. I said a few to try and hide my age, right? And you just blurt it out. Yeah.
Donkeys need
more roughage, less grassy hay. Yeah. So.
What do you mean more roughage?
So thicker plants.
Oh, there's one person.
Oh, we've got one person back over on TikTok. Well done, nice one. So say hello.
Half a bin liner of alpaca manure, 50p.
So our blackberry bush is not only huge, but around 10 years old. Wow.
Old.
So half a bin liner of alpaca poo for 50p. That's good.
So you can get a bin liner.
I think that's good stuff. You know. If you're not going to use that straight away because it's already bagged up, just leave the bags and stack the bags. One year, there used to be this farm that I used to get free bagged up horse manure from, and it wasn't hay, it wasn't bedding, it was purely manure. And in those days, I just used to go up with my trailer, fill my trailer up, and just bring everything back and just stack it and just leave it.
Sometimes went in the car and we had to bring pegs for our noses.
Yeah, sometimes the manure went in the boot of the car.
Let's jump for the next few days.
Yeah. So you've got all of these stories, haven't you?
Have you got?
Oh, it's your Kushmala friend back again. Have you grown chayote squash before? I've got 2 from Portugal that we grow indoors. So yeah, chayote. I grow a vine every year, and every year it just doesn't. It grows massive. I get a huge plant, but it just never flowers. I know some people down south have managed to get them to fruit. We're just really struggling with them, even though I start them off in the house in about February, and I grow them from supermarket chayotes. And yeah, but I just can't get the plants to fruit. I know that they produce during the native environment. They're one of the perennial types of squash, so they can last a couple of years, and they produce a lot of flowers, a lot more flowers in the second year. But I've just never managed to get them to fruit. But I grow a plant every year just to see, just in case some miracle happens one year.
Not just tables.
So Becklodge Farm in Nottingham, I've not heard of it. Paul, you're not old, man. I saw you climbing up those trees. and we've got to organise that tree party at our house as well.
What tree
So
party?
I think with the rate, I'm just trying to get in as many markets as possible. So I think let's leave it till probably the new year. But we're going to have this tree chopping party in early January, I think. Would you get Graham? I think you might be up for that. I think Ali said he wanted to do that as well. I've got this tickly cough from somewhere.
Got it from Zaki, probably.
From Zaki. Yes. I'm just laughing at what Graham's saying. Lots of stables will give free riding lessons for the kids in return for poop picking. My grand. No way. That's a good idea.
Oh yeah, the donkey sanctuary. What? Our school's donkeys. They might do that.
I'd be really, yeah. Do you know?
But then you'd make us pick the poop and you'll do the lessons.
So yeah, that'd be really good. You know, that'd be really good. Did you just ring? Did you just Andrew? Did you just ring them up and say, "Can we poop pick for riding lessons or what?" So where are we going?
Tree chopping party.
So chopping party. What the cool uncles doing nowadays? Absolutely, man. Horticultural. I only use my van for the allotment, and it gets tons of manure and leaves and weekly in it. Oh. Right, guys, we've just passed that 9 o'clock mark, and because I made it on time tonight, I think I'm going to finish on time as well. You guys want me here?
No, you can stay live.
You can stay live. We don't want you anymore. So Sam's back over on the tiki-toki.
Is that good?
So Radmiya wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah. How are you doing? Right, guys, on that note, so
you just joined and some people are going.
just to summarize, okay, Khadija, can you just sit up without leaning on me? Because you keep pushing me over. Sit up nicely, please. Yeah, what I was going to say, so summarize right now. Get your soil in order. Get your garden mulch. You know, get as much mulch as you can. Yeah.
Someone asking how much the log burner was.
But yeah, that. How much was my log burner? All in all, after all the repairs and everything, the log burner itself cost me £4,000. But once everything was done and everything was in place, fixing all the repairs and stuff came up to about £4,500 with the back wall and everything. But they've just put prices up again because a lot of people are going for them because of cost of living stuff. A lot of people are they're just putting prices up again. But yeah, good luck for your teams in the World Cup, and I'll see you again next week.
Wait, is USA playing
just
tomorrow?
Before I go, if you guys don't already know about our pickles, check out our pickles on our website. They're absolutely amazing pickles. Unfortunately, it's only delivery to the UK. Postage just is ridiculously expensive. I'll send it anywhere else. But yeah. Yeah, Graham. Yeah, I want you to teach me how to climb a tree. Well, first, I want you to teach me how to climb a tree and chop a tree down in the matter of a few hours. I think I can climb it. I can climb it without any issue. I think getting down is going to be my problem. But you guys all take care, and I'll see you again next week, same time. Yeah, 8 o'clock Friday nights. We're always live. And on that note, I'm going to leave it there. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.